Okay, so this is the first video of the trimester. This is Unit 1, Concept 2, Lab Safety. Basically, we are going over the information that is on your safety contract. After you finish taking these notes, you should know your safety contract and you should be able to sign it. Alright, we are going to start with some very general safety rules that I am going to expect you to follow all the time in the lab. Okay? Before starting a lab, you need to read all instructions and divide the work among your lab group. Follow only written and verbal instructions. Don't do anything that is not given in the procedure. Always work with your lab group. Never work alone. Okay, use the buddy system. Don't work alone. Monitor your lab group's work. At all times, do not wander away from your group. There should be no food, drink, or gum in the lab. Horseplay is not allowed in the lab. You need to practice good housekeeping. That means that you need to keep your lab station neat and organized. Okay? And if there are spills, you need to clean them up immediately. Keep your hands away from your face, eyes, and mouth. And before leaving the lab, wash your hands. Okay, now we're going to move on to some more specific areas of safety rules. Okay, so we're going to start with how to handle chemicals. You need to consider all chemicals to be dangerous. Even if we are working with something that's very common, for example, salt or sugar, you still need to consider them to be potentially dangerous. Okay, do not touch, taste, or smell a chemical unless directed to do so. To record the smell of a chemical, you need to waft. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight this word because it is a vocabulary word. Now, to waft, all you need to do is fan the fume to your nose. Always check the label on a chemical bottle before using the contents. A lot of chemicals have very similar names. You need to make sure you know what you're using before you start using it. Okay? Do not return unused chemical to stock bottles. Stock bottles are the original bottles that the chemicals come in. Don't put anything back into the stock bottles because we might introduce contamination and we do not want that to happen. Okay? Keep flammable liquids away from flames. This is another vocabulary word, so I'm going to highlight it. Right? Flammable means that it can catch on fire, so we want to keep it away from any kind of open flame. To dilute acids or bases, we need to add the acid or the base to the water. Okay, and here's another vocabulary word, dilute. Dilute means watered down. So if you don't know that word, let's write down the definition. To water down. Okay, if we want to water down an acid or a base, we need to add it in this order, the acid or the base into the water. To make it easier for you to remember the root beer, A&W, or you can remember the car, BMW. Okay? Add the acid or the base to the water. You follow proper disposal procedures for all chemicals. Okay? Some chemicals cannot be dumped into the sink, so we need to make sure we follow the procedure for all chemicals. Alright, let's talk about how to dress for a lab. Okay? Safety goggles should be worn when working with 3 things: chemicals, glassware, and heat. That's pretty much all the time in the chemistry lab. So whenever I ask you to wear your goggles, you need to make sure they are on your eyes, not on your forehead, and not around your neck. You need to wear long pants, socks, and closed-toed shoes. Okay, no sandals and no shorts. This is to protect your legs and your feet. Tied back, baggy clothing, and long hair. Anything that potentially can get into chemicals or can get into flames need to be tied back. And no jewelry in the lab. Okay, I suggest that you take off all jewelry before you get into the lab, particularly your watch or your bracelets. Anything that is around your hand should be taken off. Okay. The metals in the jewelry can react with chemicals, so make sure that you take them off before you start. Okay, glassware. Do not immerse hot glass in cold water. Okay, doing that will shatter the glass. Give hot glassware plenty of time to cool. Hot glass looks like cold glass. Okay, we can't really tell them apart, so it is best to just give hot glass a lot of time to cool down before you touch them. Okay, never pick up broken glass with bare hands. You can cut yourself by doing that. Also, the glass can have some leftover chemicals on them, and we don't want you to be exposed. Okay, dispose of broken glass in the designated container. We have a box in the back of the lab that is labeled broken glass, and that is where you will put any kind of broken glass. Okay, never use chipped or broken glassware. If you get one of those, then just call me over and I'll get you a replacement. Okay, now let's talk about equipment use. You need to dry your hands before touching anything that's electrical. Alright, by this time you should know that if you touch anything electrical with wet hands, you're going to get shocked. Be careful when working with a burner. Okay, never reach over a burner. The flame on a Bunsen burner particularly is a very light blue color, and it's very hard to tell how high it is. So you want to make sure that you don't reach over the burner because you can easily get burned if you do that. Okay? If a burner strikes back, you need to turn off the gas. Okay? Turn off gas valve. Now, what do we mean by the burner strikes back? When a burner strikes back, basically what it's doing is instead of burning right here on the top, it is burning down here on the bottom. Okay, basically there's some problem with the conduction of the gas. So when you turn off the gas, you stop feeding the flame and the flame will go out. And anytime that we're working with a burner, you need to monitor it. Okay, if it's lit, you need to be with it at all times. Don't leave it unattended. Do not look from the top of a container when heating substances. Make observations from a side view. Turn on lab sinks slowly to prevent splashes. If you turn on the sinks too quickly, there will be splashes and you will make a mess on your lab table. Okay, so make sure that you turn them on slowly and then adjust the flow as needed. Use a fume hood when working with volatile chemicals or substances that produce toxic fumes. There are two vocabulary words right here: volatile and toxic. Alright, a lot of you probably have never heard of this word right here. Volatile means that this is a liquid that can evaporate easily at room temperature. Okay? So what that means is it turns from a liquid to a gas really quickly, and because it is a gas, we can breathe it in. That's not a good thing because that can make us sick. Alright? Toxic means poisonous. So anything that is toxic is poisonous, and we don't want to breathe in anything that is poisonous. Alright, so anytime that we're working with something that's volatile or toxic, we will put it in the fume hood. Now you should know by now what the fume hood is, but if not, we have two in the room, one on each side of the lab. Okay, the fume hood basically is used to help us and protect us from these fumes that we don't want to breathe in. Okay, and the last section on first aid. You need to know what to do if an injury occurs or if there's an accident. Alright? First thing that you need to know is that water is your number one safety material. It is your friend. Wash all chemical splashes, burns, and cuts immediately with water for at least 15 minutes. Okay? So the first thing that you should always do if chemicals get on your hand is to wash it. Okay? The safety shower is used if a chemical spills on a large area of your body. Now, what do we mean by large area? A large area of your body would be something like your torso or your legs, okay? Something that cannot be covered by using the water from the sink. Now, the safety shower can also be used to extinguish clothing fire. So if someone catches on fire, we can take them to the safety shower and let it take care of the fire, okay? The eye wash station is used if chemicals splash into your eyes. That should never happen because you should be wearing your goggles. But if that does happen, then you need to use the eye wash, okay? This is how you use it. Hold your eyelids open in the water and flush for at least 15 minutes. If you wear contacts, those contacts need to come out first, okay? The problem with contacts in your eyes is they are in direct contact with your eyeballs, okay? So if you are wearing contacts, you need to take them off first because there might be some chemicals that are on those contacts. Alright, after you wash out your eyes, then you can go to the nurse and the nurse will take care of it from there. Alright, use the fire blanket to cover any burning materials. The fire blanket works by cutting off the oxygen supply. Right? And we know that a fire cannot burn without oxygen. Now, the blanket can also be used on people, but remember, do not cover a person's head. Alright? Since the blanket works by cutting off oxygen, when you cover a person's head, you cut off the oxygen for that person and you suffocate the person. Okay? Know how to use the fire extinguisher properly. 4 steps. Very easy. You can remember it by the acronym PASS. Okay? Pull the safety pin. Aim at the base of the fire. Squeeze the handle and sweep from side to side. Okay, 4 easy steps. I'm going to highlight this acronym right here so you guys can remember. And you also need to make sure that you stand back, okay, at least 6 to 8 feet. Alright, and finally, when we have an acid or base burn, okay, so if you spill an acid or a base on your hand, the first thing that you should do, of course, is to wash it with water. Now, what happens if that doesn't quite work, okay? Basically, what you're going to feel is some tingling if it didn't quite wash away. Now, what we need to do here is then to neutralize the acid or the base, okay? So, what we use is 2 very common things. We can use vinegar. Now, vinegar is an acid, so what it does is it neutralizes the base. So, if we have a base burn, we neutralize it with vinegar. Second thing that we can use is a baking soda and water paste. Okay, so we just mix some baking soda with water, and that will neutralize an acid burn. Baking soda is a base, and opposites will neutralize. Okay, so baking soda will neutralize an acid. And finally, this last bit is very important. Once you have dealt with the injury or the accident, okay, you have administered first aid, then You tell me what went on. Okay?